We are joined today by the OpenShift boys. We have Jamie Duncan and we have John Osborne.
That name's not going to stick, is it? The OpenShift boys?
OpenShift boys might stick,
They
but
solve crimes and write books.
but they are the authors of OpenShift in Action, and we welcome them today.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, first of all, tell us, what was the inspiration for writing this book?
Well, I'll start with Jamie because he's the one that.
Yeah, I got started on it first. The inspiration was a cold call from the publisher. And and when you think about it, the stuff that we focus on at Red Hat in particular, and in particular with our sales team, is we try to focus on that fundamental knowledge, the knowledge that's not only valid for version 3.6 of anything that is only going to work for 6 months. We try to talk to our customers and we try to build our solutions around things that are going to be valid over long periods of time. And that was where we started with the book, focusing on that fundamental knowledge and focusing on the things inside Kubernetes, inside OpenShift, that are going to be valid for more than one minor release. That's going to be valid for the totality, really, of Kubernetes. There's only, outside of a few pictures and a few updates in the installer, the book is valid from version 3.5 up through 3.9, and 3.9 is the latest. So we focused on that stuff that's going to stay consistent over time, those fundamental concepts.
Great. John, your inspiration.
Sure. So Jamie then cold called me after he realized that it was a lot of work, and I'm really good at overcommitting to things, so I decided to sign up. But no, I thought it would be good to, whenever you teach something, that's when you really, really grasp it. I've been using OpenShift for a while and using containers for a while. But when you really go to teach it, you kind of fills in some gaps that maybe you had kind of glossed over a couple pieces here and there before. So I thought it'd be fun to help educate others, but help educate myself as well. So.
Okay, great. And we thank you for writing that. Any special kudos or any special accolades that surprised you all that you got from the book?
Oh, God. I don't know about accolades. I don't know about accolades, but the community. Like Clayton Coleman, who is giving a keynote on the other side of the wall over here beside us right now. Top contributor to Kubernetes, like the Kubernetes contributor of the year, like got a big award at KubeCon. Amazing person, and would answer my random emails about C groups at 3 a.m. happily. The desire for the community to share what they know is stunning, and especially around the Kubernetes community and around the OpenShift project. So accolades for me, no, I can't think of anything, but we couldn't figure out a way. If we wrote down everyone that helped us write this book, if we gave everyone a mention, the book would be 600 pages long. So the community itself was just stunning, and some of the stuff we put down has never been documented before. Some of the stuff down deep in the Linux kernel that we decided to go all the way down to, no one ever wrote down how it worked with containers. So some of the stuff in a couple of these chapters, it's the first time it's been documented. And a lot of people helped figure that out.
Well, you both are instrumental at Red Hat in putting the security in DevSecOps. Explain how you took an interest in the security part of this, John.
Yes. So the book really is takes a from the ground up approach with like fundamental knowledge. So we started kind of at the layer of just containers, what they are, and how we isolate containers using standard Linux processes. And then Jamie actually wrote an entire chapter that covers a lot of SE Linux type concepts as a
boring
yeah yeah down the approach. But we took it all the way up through the stack with writing CI/CD and other things on top of it. Using things like role-based access control and other things built on top of containers to kind of get, secure containers, but then through something modern day delivery with a CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah, and so in the last chapter of the book, chapter 11, is security, and it's titled, oddly enough, Security. But the little intro, the little hard blurb you write at the very beginning of it, we point out, yes, this chapter is focused solely on security, but we've been talking about security since chapter 1. And we actually outline how each chapter, what we're talking about in each chapter, how containers help with security, how CI/CD helps with security, how storage helps make a more secure application. And then we tied all of that in to that overarching holistic security concept that really containers let you have for the first time. It was all kind of theory up until we have a container platform like OpenShift. So it does start at the bottom, and we build it up. Every chapter is dealing with security in some way, shape, or form, because that's the only way you can do it. It's got to be common sense from the ground up.
Well, I know you two are extremely passionate about your work and about this topic. How do you stay engaged and prevent burnout?
You can prevent that?
Yeah. Well, after the book was done, at least from the rough draft perspective, we did take probably what we say a month off or so. Yeah, over the holidays, kind of shut down. Then things have picked back up a little bit recently now that the book's been released. There's people on the forums with questions and so forth. Finding maybe a typo or something else that was missed. I think you just kind of have to force yourself into, prioritizing, things with family and things with sleep as well. So, you make sure that, because things can get away from you real fast, especially when you're writing a book on top of your everyday work. So for me, it was just kind of saying, hey, after I get this done, I'm going to prioritize. I'm going to make sure I get, 7 hours sleep tonight or something else like that. So,
those are the good days.
Yeah. How do you?
It's kind of fun. Like preventing burnout, I don't know. I've never been very good at that. I wasn't good at that before I started writing a book. But it is fun. This community, the container ecosystem, really the Kubernetes ecosystem, I guess is a more accurate way to put it. It changes almost minute by minute. And there's always a new idea. There's always a new product. There's always a new thing. There's no concept of stagnation. If you want to get behind dealing with Kubernetes every day, just don't do it for 2 days. That's all you have to do. So there's if you want to be engaged, if that's your goal, and we get paid for that on top of everything, on top of wanting to do it. Correct. You just jump in the river and let it carry you. And Twitter is really the only manual you've got, just a curated Twitter feed.
Twitter's the manual.
That are hard right now too with burnout is like, we have email, we've got Twitter, there's Slack, there's all these chats.
Yeah, the Slack channel has been hot lately.
It's been like, it becomes a nonstop barrage of information. I find it helpful to try to work in things more of a batching approach, but it's really tough because you have all these things that send notifications on your phone and stuff. So sometimes you just have to, sometimes I might put my phone into airplane mode or something, and I'm gonna knock this out, or I'm just gonna do email and not clean up my inbox, and then something comes in the next day. It's gonna have to wait till the next day. I'm not gonna be always just responding nonstop, because then you get into this basically place where you're just like context switching constantly between, there's a new blog on Twitter about this new Kubernetes feature, and there's this new question on chat if I have this, and 10 different emails about 10 different subjects. So it is tough.
New Podman blog post.
Yeah, so
we have 3 of every week.
It's a challenge. You just kind of have to be. I think you really have to be disciplined about it. But I'm not great at it. But yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things we learned, John and I work very differently.
Yes.
While putting this book together.
Yeah.
I just let it hit.
Yeah.
Well, we do know you work great together, albeit differently, because we have a successful book in the Manning collection and the In Action collection called OpenShift in Action. And guys, just not to put you on the spot, but one last parting question. Now, what's out there coming that you might think that technology that we should pay attention to? It's something that you're following.
I think the operator framework is pretty interesting because it takes a lot of things that were manual steps, the things that were in operations for a long time to manage things like a cluster database or a Kafka messaging implementation, like more complex problems, and try to codify that into something that can run as code native inside Kubernetes. So that's real interesting to me. I think that is kind of the next step in evolution inside of Kubernetes, to take more complex applications, not just a traditional stateless app or maybe a more simple stateful app, but things that require maintenance and over time, and things like upgrades and database changes and things like that. So I think that's probably one of the things that are most interesting to me. But there's more as well. Today I'll be speaking on Istio at I think 250. So and that's a platform to manage microservices. But and that's also interesting. But I think operators is probably one of the big things that most people will see and use in the next couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, John stole mine because we were just talking about operators 5 minutes ago with Clayton Coleman
Okay.
about them. One of the things that's really that has me interested it's a Kubernetes idea called custom resource definitions, CRDs,
Okay.
where you can define an endpoint in Kubernetes that extends the Kubernetes data API to whatever you want it to be, and that API endpoint creates any arbitrary container you tell it to create. So you can, instead of all of that cruft, all of those things that we have to do, every application has to have its own API server. Everything has to have a RESTful API. We have this nest of APIs that becomes really a rat's nest really quickly, and it's things like Istio or help design that. But for a lot of the smaller stuff, you can just extend the existing Kubernetes API with a custom definition and save mountains of time, mountains of effort, mountains of maintenance. Not everything needs its own API server. Everything needs its own API endpoint. And just taking that idea. I've been playing around with CRDs for a while, for the past few weeks, and I see a lot of really cool sort of opsy things you can do with them just to make maintenance on your cluster easier. It's good stuff.
Might that make a book too?
Ask our wives.
Will do. Well, guys, thank you very much. The OpenShift boys, OpenShift in action. Please pick it up. We thank you for your time. Thank you again.
Thanks, Michelle.